This is praise to the Mother of all the Buddhas, the perfection of wisdom. Gate para sangha de Bodhi swaha. Deatha gate para sangha de Bodhi swaha. Deatha gate para sangha de Bodhi swaha. Through the knowledge of all the Charavakas seeking peace are led to true peace. Through the knowledge of the power of those intended to benefit transmigrate certain beings, fulfill the aims of the Buddha being perfectly endowed with the omniscient mind. The sages give various teachings with all kinds of aspects. I bow down to the Mother or the Buddhas together with the communities of hearers and bodhisattvas. I prostrate to the perfect Buddha, the best of all teachers, who taught that which arises through dependent relationships has no cessation, no arising, no annihilation, no permanence, no coming, no going, no distinction, no identity, and peaceful is peaceful, free from fabrications. Homage to the Gautama, who moved by his compassion toward the sacred Dharma to rid us of misconceived views. So, for today's discourse, as I said yesterday, the 400 verses says, get rid of all unmeritorious actions, and in the middle, get rid of the notion of the self, and then finally, get rid of the all distorted views, which includes that of the ignorance about the true nature of things, grasping at true existence, together with the imprints. So when we explain emptiness, there is a way to do so through very simple reasons, and then using many different reasonings to gain insight into emptiness. Now, the method, or that which has the power to overcome all defilements together with their imprints, is bodhichitta. So with the backing or support of bodhicitta and then the 6 perfections, your insight into emptiness, not just a simple insight into emptiness, but that understanding of emptiness is called the all-aspect emptiness, with the complete all aspects. So for bodhicitta, it is rooted in love and compassion. As I mentioned earlier, with wisdom, the bodhisattvas focus on enlightenment, and with compassion on sentient beings. So a Buddha is someone who has attained the 3 bodies, in other words, who is the embodiment of the 3 bodies, or the 4 bodies, as it is mentioned in Abhisamaya Alankara clearly. And therefore, that resultant state of Buddhahood, which is an entity with 4 Buddha bodies, to attain that, you need to create the causes, the complete causes, which resembles the resultant state. And therefore, we come across the Tantric text. So if emptiness were the only means, then Buddhahood cannot be attained, because it doesn't comprise the complete course for enlightenment. And so, with the help of emptiness, with the help of 6 perfections alone, cannot lead you to Buddhahood, because the complete cause is not there. So, in order to remain in total absorption on emptiness in meditation without ever having to come out of it as such, of course you need to, you can reach that kind of a goal through the understanding of emptiness, which is taught in the Sutrayana, but the path that resembles that of Dharmakaya is there in the Sutrayana, whereas the path which has the resemblance of the Rupakaya, the form body of a Buddha, is not there in the Sutrayana, it's only in the Tantrayana, and therefore just as the Arya beings on the trainee level have the path that could lead to the Dharmakaya, likewise there's no reason why there's no need for a path which resembles or which becomes the cause for a form body of a Buddha. So, the resultant stage, which is qualified by the 32 major and 80 minor marks, we need to actually create, have the causes which can serve as the cause of these features. And so, as we also talked in the last days, in order to do a deity yoga practice, without the proper causes that lead you to that, you cannot do deity yoga, and therefore in Kriya Tantra and upwards of Tantric system, we have the emptiness, meditation on emptiness, and then there is also the meditation on the sound of the mantra and so forth. And then from within the state of emptiness, doesn't mean that there is some empty space somewhere and you are building something there, but here from within emptiness means what happens to us is things appear as if they have some objective independent existence, and we cling to that as well. And the antidote to that is that of the selflessness, which is mentioned in the 400 verses. So there's no other way than that. The seed of samsara is our mind, and by realizing selflessness, you can seize that seed in the 400 verses. So all mental afflictions are rooted in ignorance. And so it mentions the 400 verses. If you see dependent origination, when you see dependent origination, then ignorance will not arise. And so, once you understand the reality of how things are, then it's that very wisdom, realizing the reality of things, serves as antidote to this ignorance. So seeing dependent origination, you will not have that of ignorance, it will not arise. And therefore, with all one's might, one should proclaim that teaching of selflessness. So the reality or the suchness of dependent origination will serve as the antidote to the fundamental ignorance. So, in order to attain the two Buddha bodies, So, in order to attain the two Buddha bodies, we need to have the fundamental ignorance. So, in order to attain the two Buddha bodies, we need to have the fundamental ignorance. So, in order to attain the two Buddha bodies, we need to have the fundamental ignorance. So, in order to attain the two Buddha bodies, we need to have the fundamental ignorance. So, in order to attain the two Buddha bodies, we need to have the fundamental ignorance. So, in order to attain the two Buddha bodies, we need to have the fundamental ignorance. So, in order to attain the two Buddha bodies, we need to have the fundamental ignorance. So, in order to attain the two Buddha bodies, we need to have the fundamental ignorance. So, in order to attain the two Buddha bodies, we need to have the fundamental ignorance. So, in order to attain the two Buddha bodies, we need to have the fundamental ignorance. So, in order to attain the two Buddha bodies, we need to have the fundamental ignorance. So, in order to attain the two Buddha bodies, we need to have the fundamental ignorance. So, in order to I mean, you need to develop you need a path which is an antidote to our mental afflictions. And therefore, in Tantra, emptiness is taught right in the beginning. Without that, lacking this view of emptiness, then you will not have the antidote to the ignorance, which is the root of our cyclic existence. So even in the resultant state, the form body arises from within that of the Dharmakaya, which means from the reality of the... And therefore, without attaining the Dharmakaya, you cannot attain the form body. And therefore, in Tantra, first you have the course for mainly attaining Dharmakaya. There's emphasis on that. And so, focusing on enlightenment, you meditate on emptiness. Since the form body which serves to benefit others arises from within the Dharmadhatu of Dharmakaya, you need to develop the understanding of emptiness and have the generate the conviction on emptiness. And within that meditation on emptiness, everything is dissolves, and then you arise into a deity body. And so by meditating on emptiness, you arise into the form of a deity with face and all other features. So without the view of emptiness, there is no way you can have the antidote to this ignorance, which is the root of samsara. So by meditating on emptiness and maintaining your meditation, absorption in emptiness, then from within that meditation on emptiness, you arise into the form of a deity. And thereby you have the meditation on the pure realm of a Buddha. There were people who, even in ancient times, saying that Tantra was not a teaching of Buddha. And also the Prajnaparamita discourses were not teaching of the Buddha. There were such people after the passing away of the Buddha, Shakyamuni. When the 18 different sects of Vaibhashikas developed, there were such case. And then also there were people who said that Sanskrit tradition of Buddhism was not the teaching of the Buddha, but it was something which was designed or created by the scholars later. So in the Ratnavali by Nagarjuna, there is argument for Mahayana being the teaching of the Buddha. And then also in Bodhisattvacharya Avatara, and also in the Madhyamaka Hridaya, the essence of the middle way by Bhaviveka, there are many reasonings given for Mahayana being the teaching of a Buddha. So in Buddhism, what is taught are the bodhichitta, the six perfections, and emptiness. So all the teaching of the Buddha, even in the Pali tradition, the Four Noble Truths, the 16 aspects of the Four Noble Truths and the 12 links of dependent origination. There's 37 harmonies of enlightenment and so forth are taught. So we don't need to only to talk about to say that there is someone called a Buddha, but we need to actually go through the Four Noble Truths and logically be able to prove that that of the cessation and true paths can be cultivated, and therefore mainly emphasizing reasoning and logic to prove the 16 aspects of the Four Noble Truths, which are shared by the entire teaching, the follower of the teaching of the Buddha. And particularly when you have to go in detail regarding the true cessation and true path, you will find that in the Sanskrit tradition. And therefore, we can justify that the Mahayana teachings being the words of the Buddha. But then if you ask, but then it was, this is not found, there's no prevalent record of it, the Mahayana teachings. So of course, with regard to the teaching of the Buddha, there are cases where the Buddha taught and give certain teachings in public. For example, Sandhi Nirmochana Sutra was taught in this Sandhi Nirmochana Sutra was taught to those beings who were not able to take literally the teaching of the perfection of wisdom. And therefore, all the different philosophical traditions, philosophical views and assertions and schools within Buddhism have the same teacher. And so it's not enough just to say that the Sanskrit tradition is the teaching of the Buddha, but you need to actually see whether these teachings are actually supported by logic and reason, that they are not undermined by them. And therefore, even in those ancient times, there were people who rejected Mahayana being the teaching of the Buddha, and particularly Tantrayana. And so, some Indian scholars have mentioned that Tantra was not taught by the Buddha. And then within Tantra, there are many practices of Tantra which are very similar to the non-Buddhist schools. For example, accomplishing the 4 kinds of activities, making fire puja, and so forth. So I asked, in order to differentiate between the non-Buddhist and Buddhist Tantras, I asked my guru, Kunu Lama Rinpoche Tenzin Gyaltsen, how do we differentiate these two mainly? So with regard to deity yoga practice and the practice based on using those of the energies, the subtle energies, drops and so forth. When you do these practices in connection with the view of emptiness, then they become Buddhist practice. Whereas apart from that, they become that of the non-Buddhist practice of Tantra. And so, also with regard to the inner heat, called the fierce lady, literally. Tumo, And there are non-Buddhist practitioners who live in the Himalayan snow mountain regions, living naked. And so when they're able to do that, live in such a high, cold climate, called naked, it shows that they have this practice of tummo. So I wished once to have discussions with such practitioners of non-Buddhist traditions. And so I have expressed my wish to meet with such great meditators. So both the Buddhist and non-Buddhist traditions have this practice of generating the tummo, the inner heat, and then also powa, or projection of mind out of your body, and then tongjuk, which is the transference of your consciousness into another body. So Gorakhpur, His Holiness is thinking of having some discussions with a non-Buddhist meditator somewhere in Gorakhpur, I think. His Holiness. And so, according to him, it seemed that they also have these practices of the projection of the consciousness out of the body, and also transference of it into another body. And so when you go into the details, you need to really see what constitutes non-Buddhist tantric practice and what constitutes Buddhist practice of Tantra. You cannot just make this distinction on the basis of Daiki yoga practice or these other practices I mentioned. So there were arguments that Mahayana in general, and particularly Tantra, was not the words of the Buddha. And in Buddhist tradition, there were 80 Mahasiddhas. For example, Master Nagarjuna was one of them. And he wrote these Guya Samaja Tantra text called Pinda Vidhi or something, and then also another, which is the practice of on the generation stage of Guya Samaja. And then he also wrote the 5 stages, which has to do with the completion stage. And Aryadeva, who was Master Nagarjuna's disciple, wrote as a commentary to the 5 stages. Aryadeva wrote Jodu, the compendium of practices or something like that. And then Master Chandrakirti also wrote the Pradhipo Udyodhana, which is a commentary on Guya Samaja Tantra and the 5 stages also. And so there were many Indian masters who wrote these treatises on Tantra. And with regard to their subject matter, they emphasize that of emptiness, based on which they explain the deity yoga meditation. And so Master Nagarjuna and his disciples also are well known to have written tantric texts. And then gradually in Tibet, the Buddhism, I don't know if Master Chandrakshita wrote any text on tantric texts. Whether he wrote any, I have no idea. Whether Chandrakshita and Kamalashila have written text on Tantra or not. And then Tibetan translators, great translators, came to India in those old times and translated tantric texts into Tibetan. And through that, Tantra spread in Tibet. And then Marpa Lotsawa, the great translator, came to India. He received teachings on Tantra, and particularly Master Naropa, and brought Tantric texts to Tibet. And so from Marpa Lotsawa, the great translator, came that of the Kagyu tradition, which was followed by his disciple Milarepa, the great saint of Tibet, and then Takulhaje or Gampopa. And Naropa, the master of Marpa the translator, was a scholar from Nalanda. He was known to have been the gatekeeper or the guard at the northern gate of Nalanda monastery. So in the highest Yoga Tantra, there is the practice of making one's innate clear-light mind manifest through the forceful stoppage of the flow of the gross states of mind and wind energies, and thereby using that clear light, that innate clear light that manifests within yourself, to realize emptiness. And so the mind that meditates on emptiness becomes the jnana, the omniscient mind of a Buddha in the resultant stage, and then the energy which accompanies that subtlest mind transforms into the Buddha's speech and body. And so the subtlest energy becomes the substantial cause for that of the Buddha's form body. And therefore, with these two, the subtlest mind, the clear light, luminous, innate clear light, and the subtlest wind energy, within that we have the potential. They have the potential to bring about the Buddha bodies. And therefore, it is said that enlightenment is not cannot be bestowed by anybody. It is not possessed by anybody. So the potential for enlightenment is innate within us. And so enlightenment cannot be granted by others, nor is it possessed by somebody. But when one sees one's own nature, which refers to the subtlest clear light and the wind energy, when you are able to make them manifest and actively work in you, then you will be able to attain enlightenment. So, by realizing one's own nature, which refers to the subtlest wind and mind energy, so when these two remain alone, just these two remain within what happens is you will reach the union state of at the trainee level, and then the union state of Buddhahood. And therefore, because the very potential for enlightenment is within ourselves, it is mentioned that enlightenment is not granted by somebody else, and nor can it be possessed by anybody. So, when you actually understand the meaning of these, the tantras well, then this kind of verse will make sense to you. And therefore, the first three tantras, Kriya, Acharya, and Yoga tantras, are like the steps leading to the highest Yoga tantra. So in all tantras, I mean, it is mentioned that we need to attain the Buddha's form body. So in order to reach a pure body of the Buddha's, at the state of Buddhahood, one needs to attain a pure body, and the impure body needs to be purified and reach that state, passing through the trainee level path. And so when you think along these reasonings, then you will you'll be able to gain some conviction in the Tantra being the teaching of the Buddha and cannot actually argue against it. As I explained, without bodhichitta, merely meditating on deity yoga will be similar to the non-Buddhist practice. And within the deity yoga practice itself, if you are not able to do that through the meditation on emptiness, again, I mean, this will not become a Buddhist practice as such. So if you have some insight into emptiness, the seventh Dalai Lama says, everything in samsara and nirvana comes from one's mind, and the mind itself doesn't have any essence. And so when you meditate on the emptiness of your mind, all these diversities of things dissolve within it. And so when you meditate on emptiness, just as the clouds in the autumn sky dissipates into the sky, one's mind and emptiness, the Dharma Dhatu, becomes one, and all the diversities of things will dissolve or disappear from your vision. And so when you have such an experience of emptiness, and then from within that emptiness, when you say from within the emptiness, I arise into whichever deity yoga practice you are doing, you arise into that particular deity. And having generated into yourself into a deity, then you meditate on emptiness of the deity, just as you have done it prior to arising into the deity. So once you arise into the deity, yourself as the resident and the celestial mansion as the residence, and you have to see everything as being pure realm, within pure realm. And so the meditation on emptiness with regard to the pure object actually goes up to Buddhahood. The meditation which are done on the basis of emptiness, done on impure realms, do not become a Buddha's mind and so on. And so when meditating on emptiness, all these appearances disappear. And then there is also the dissolution process that you go through at the time of death. You go through the dissolution process, and finally everything else dissolving into that clear light of dying state. Whereas there are other meditations where you deliberately withdraw the appearances. And so when you think along these practices, think about these practices, you might find it quite surprising or intriguing. So the Buddha Dharma that is spread in Tibet is a complete teaching of the Buddha, which includes the Tantrayana, also the teachings of the Pali and Sanskrit traditions. And so all the Tibetan Buddhist traditions, including Jonang, have the entire teaching of the Buddha. Whereas before Buddhism spread to Tibet, we have the indigenous religion, which is called Bön. So one abbot of Bön tradition I knew very well, Gentenze Namdak, and he also studied in Drepung. So I had a discussion with him with regard to whether Bön tradition is Buddhism or in Tibetan Nangpa. And I said to him, if Bön were, already Nangpa, inner science, then tradition, then we didn't need to take Buddhism from India, do we? So the Bönpos also these days, when they have dialectical debate, and they also quote from Indian classic texts like those of the Madhyamaka Avatara and so forth. And so Bön tradition has taken lots of elements or teachings from Buddhism later. And so all the Tibetan traditions of Buddhism, Sakya Nyingma Gyaluk Kagyu and Jonang, are the teaching of the Buddha comprising the entire teaching. So the initiation or the Jenang, the permission to do the practice of Avalokiteshvara that I'm doing belongs to the Kriya Tantra or Action Tantra. In the Nyingma tradition, there is the Karma, which is the long lineage or distant lineage, and then the Dharma. The revealed treasure teachings are called close lineage, and then there is the third set of teachings called Sabmotaknang, the profound, pure visionary teachings. So this particular Jenang that I'm doing comes from the great Mahasiddha Mittapa. Takpu Dorje Chang received it in a vision of this great Mahasiddha of India, Mittapa, and received it from him. Mittapa. No, it says Mittapa. So Mitajogi has said these, that he received this teaching from the, Avalokiteshvara himself in person. He says he has attained illusory body and so forth, and that he could emanate himself in very myriad forms, and he resides in the Organ land, Odhyana or something, and also he emanates in some southern region. So Takpu Dorje Chang lineage, in each life it seems they have some vision of Tara. The current Takpu Dorje Chang reincarnation seems also to have some visions. So at the age of 15, Takpu Garwang Pema Shwara So in the mountain of Kasarpani, the great teacher, when he was doing the meditation on the Avalokiteshvara Rangdril, he had this vision of Avalokiteshvara and received the teaching from Avalokiteshvara. So I have received the set of Tagpo Dorje Chang's visionary teachings from Gyabje Tjang Rinpoche, mentioned. And so I do the Chittamani Tara sadhana every day. So seeing a very special purpose of this, I have this Avalokiteshvara practice. I recited 600,000 Mani mantra, or Mani payment 6 syllable mantra, and did a retreat on this Avalokiteshvara. So when you are actually, whether you have visions or not, I don't have a vision of Avalokiteshvara or anybody, but if you can have some experience of bodhichitta and of the view of emptiness, and then that's the real vision, whether you see the deities or not. And so to do this permission ceremony of Avalokiteshvara, the best would be, I thought, to do the layperson's vows, and then next we'll do the bodhichitta ceremony. So, of course, since this particular permission initiation comes under the action tantra, we don't have the tantric vows as such. And so if you have the book, turn on page 17. I think it should be on page 17 for the upasaki vows. So with regard to the layperson with vows, you can take either one or few of them, or all of the 5 precepts. So here we'll do the upasaka for with all the 5 precepts. So what are the 5 precepts? Not killing human beings, not stealing things from others, and not engaging in sexual misconduct. So of course, if you are couples, then there's no such infringement as sexual misconduct. But if you have sexual relationship with another person apart from your couple, your spouse, then that's sexual misconduct. And then the 4th one is telling this grave lie. The people who sit on high thrones are at a great risk of committing this kind of lie. So although it seems to me that I have the good insight into what Master Tsongkhapa says in his 3 principal aspects of the path. One's without alternating between the appearance and the emptiness. When you see that of the infallibility of karma, the dependent arising, if you can right away induce that of the view of emptiness, these lines. But if I say I have realization of emptiness, it may tend to be this kind of grave lie. And then the 5th one is drinking alcohol. And once when my senior tutor, the late senior tutor, Gyabje Rinpoche, gave these 5 precepts to one Tibetan elderly Tibetan man, this man when Lingren Rinpoche explained these precepts, he said, I cannot give up drinking alcohol. And so Lingren Rinpoche very kindly and compassionately told him, in that case, don't take too much alcohol to the point of getting drunk. And so to you also, I would say that when you feel thirsty and you really need to take alcohol, you take some sips, but few sips, but not to the point of getting drunk. Okay? So instead of going through these lines that are given on page 19, is that 17? I will just do this Namo Buddhaya, Namo Dharmaya, Namo Sanghaya. So Namo Buddhaya means I salute the Buddha. Now Buddha means someone who has overcome all defilements and has the attainment of, knowledge of everything. So to have that knowledge of everything, one needs to overcome all the defilements which obscure our mind from that knowledge. And so the translation of Buddha in Tibetan is Sangye, as the Tibetan translators coined, which has both these meaning. Now here Sang Ge means so because of our afflictive emotions and so forth, we suffer because we have not developed the antidote to them. And so once you overcome all the defilements through the power of the antidote, by applying antidote, then you actually clear yourself of all these defilements. And that is what is meant by Sang. And then the very nature of mind is luminous and awareness. So this doesn't need to be cultivated as such. But because there is a veil which actually obscures us from seeing things, or for us to know everything as they are, everything as it is, then we say that we have this obscuration to knowledge. And when you actually overcome the obscuration to knowledge, which is the defilement or the stain which obscures us from seeing everything, having the full knowledge of everything, then you have that of the ignorance. And therefore, to overcome that through the realization of emptiness and so forth, it means Sang. And then you know everything, which means Ge. And then Dharma refers to the means which actually protect us from fearful states, which are unwanted by us. And therefore, by stopping or eliminating those of the causes of suffering, which is mainly that of the true cessation, which is actually brought about by true path. And so these two comprise that of the Dharma, and then when you say, therefore you say Namo Dharmaya, and then so when you take refuge in the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, you should understand Buddha and Dharma in this way, and the ones who embody the Dharma, which comprise of the true cessation, true path, is called a Sangha. And for us, there are those who have become enlightened, the Buddhas, the Dharma, and then also the Sangha, who are our assistants, and on the base, dependent on them, when you actually realize the true cessation and true path, and you become a Sangha yourself, and then you progress along the path and reach that of Buddhahood. And therefore, in this way, you will be embodying the Dharma within yourself, and you become the Sangha and Buddha in this way. So, therefore, the causal three refuges, the Buddha, our teacher, the Dharma, the path, and the teachings, and then those of the Sangha, who are our assistants on our path. And so you take refuge in them, and then also when you embody that of the Dharma within yourself, this is the actual refuge that actually protects you from those of the lower realms and the suffering and so forth. So when you practice bodhichitta and have some experience of it, you will be able to reduce that of extreme self-centeredness. And then when you understand emptiness, which is the realization of emptiness directly, is the antidote to that of the grasping at true existence. Of course, when you understand that emptiness well, then you will be able to see that the possibility to attain the Dharma and Nirvana and so forth. So in order to reach enlightenment, you need to develop that of the true insight, penetrative insight into emptiness. For that, you need to have the concentration, single-pointed concentration, and in order to be able to do that well, you need to have morality. And so we are going to do the layperson's vows only for lay people, men and women should take this vow, not the monks and nuns. So please kneel on your right knee. Think of taking a layperson's vow with the full 5 precepts. So please repeat after me these 3 lines: Namo Buddhaya, Namo Dharmaya, and Namo Sanghaya. And so at the 3rd repetition, end of the 3rd repetition, when you say Namo Sanghaya, then feel convinced that you have received that of the Upasaka vows with all the 5 precepts. So in case you feel that you will not be able to keep all 5 precepts, as it is mentioned, usually said, you may take only 1 or 2 or most of them or all 5 accordingly. So your intention should be to reach Buddhahood. For that matter, you are taking this vow. Namo Buddhaya, Namo Dharmaya, Namo Sanghaya,
Namo Buddhaya,
Namo Buddhaya, Namo Dharmaya,
Namo Sanghaya,
Namo Sanghaya,
Namo Buddhaya,
Namo Buddhaya,
Namo Dhamaya,
Namo Dhamaya,
Namo Sanghaya.
Namo Sanghaya.
Oh yeah. What are these?
So now feel convinced that you have received the 5 precepts. So please sit down. So that finishes with that we have finished with the Upasaki vows. It's already 11 o'clock, but we may still do the bodhichitta vow. Ladu. Ladu. Lao. So turn to page 19, where it says, taking the Bodhisattva vows. So I seek refuge in the 3 jewels. I confess all misdeeds individually and so forth. I think that's different page number. Which page number? Same. 11. Okay. In the yellow book, it's on page 11. So whatever right we may use doesn't make a difference. But here we are going to follow this text, which says, "I seek refuge in the three jewels." So first, because of being selfish, being under the sway of selfishness, you have created those of sin or negative actions, and therefore you need to confess these negative deeds that you have done. Now, in order to generate or cultivate bodhichitta, you need to have a huge amount of merit. You may feel, how can I do that? So the first two lines show that of the accumulation of merit and purification of negativities. And I rejoice in the virtues of all beings. And I take to my heart Buddha's enlightenment. And then next verse refers to generating bodhichitta, the mind of awakening. It says in the fourth line of the second verse, "I shall generate the mind for awakening." And then, having generated the mind for highest awakening, I shall invite all sentient beings as my guests. It's very powerful. So I take bodhisattva vows every day, and I find it very beneficial. So when one pledges to serve all sentient beings, everyone appears as one's friends. Whereas if you remain selfish, everyone actually appears as your adversaries and enemies. And then the second last line says, "I shall engage in the delightful supreme practices of enlightenment." So having generated or cultivated and developed bodhichitta, then you engage in the bodhisattva practices, which actually bring only a benefit to oneself and others, and therefore they are delightful or pleasing. And so you are saying that in order to help all other sentient beings, that you aspire to become enlightened, and not just having the intention, but also engaging in the bodhisattva practices, such as those of the six perfections. So when you say, "I will correctly engage in the bodhisattva practices," you are saying you will actually gather or accumulate all the causes and conditions for enlightenment. So please kneel on your right knee. If you have bad knees or bad legs, you may keep seating. Keep seated. So imagine the Buddha, our teacher, the founder. Imagine him in person, a real Buddha with all the major and minor marks of a great being. So you have promised to serve or benefit sentient beings. So this is the time. As we are generating a very special virtuous state of mind, we actually have a teeming field in our mind for receiving the Buddha's blessings. And so So please repeat. I seek refuge in the three jewels. I confess all misdeeds individually. I rejoice in the virtues of all beings. I take to my heart my Buddha's enlightenment. To the Buddha, Dharma, and highest assembly, I seek refuge until I reach enlightenment. To fulfill the interests of oneself and others, I should generate the mind for awakening. Having generated the mind for highest awakening, I shall invite all sentient beings as my guests. I shall engage in the delightful supreme practices of enlightenment. May I attain Buddhahood to benefit all sentient beings. So please repeat it for the second time, having done it once. I seek refuge in the three jewels. I confess all misdeeds individually. I rejoice in the virtuous deeds of all beings. I take to my heart Buddha's enlightenment. To the Buddha, Dharma, and the highest assembly, I seek refuge until I reach enlightenment. To fulfill the interests of oneself and others, I shall regenerate the mind for awakening. Having generated the mind for highest awakening, I shall invite all sentient beings as my guests. I shall engage in the delightful practices of enlightenment. May I attain Buddhahood to benefit all sentient beings. Now, at the end of the third repetition, when you recite the last line, may I attain Buddhahood to benefit all sentient beings, imagine that the Bodhisattva vow, complete set of Bodhisattva vow you received. I seek refuge in the three jewels. I confess all misdeeds individually. I rejoice in the virtuous deeds of all beings. I take to my heart Buddha's enlightenment. To the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, highest assembly, until I reach refuge until I reach enlightenment. To fulfill the interests of oneself and others, shall regenerate the awakening mind. Having generated awakening mind, I shall invite all sentient beings my guests. Shall engage in this. Today my life has borne fruit. I have attained excellent human existence. Today I am born in the Buddha's family, and now I have become Buddha's child. Now come what may, I shall act in accord with this lineage, never causing this impeccable noble lineage to be tarnished. Today, in front of all the Buddhas, invite all sentient beings to the feast of Buddhahood. So humans and non-humans, be pleased. Please sit down. So when you develop this kind of kind heart, warm heart, the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, to the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, you pledge that you will serve others, then the whole world will actually appear as friends instead of becoming enemies. And so bodhicitta is that factor which fulfills one's own goal as well as the goal of others, as it is said in the text itself. To benefit or to fulfill the interests of oneself and others, I shall generate the mind for awakening. As I said earlier, now you need to visualize yourself as deity. As I have generated the deity. If you can see the Thangka painting behind on the right side of His Holiness, and so imagine the three deities, Avalokiteshvara, liberating beings from lower realms in the center, so Ngensong Kundul, Kasarpani, and with two deities flanking him on his right and left. One is Aryatara, the green Tara, and the other one is blue Tara, or Ekajati. So with regard to Bodhisattva vows, we have already done it. So we have done the Upasaka layperson's vows for the laity. And also we did the Bodhisattva vows, preceded by those of the purification of negativities and accumulation of merit. So just as I have generated myself into the main deity, flanked by the two goddesses, imagine me as Avalokiteshvara, Nyensong Kondil. And now here, those who have received a full-fledged initiation before, you can imagine yourself transforming into a deity when we go through that process a little later. Whereas if you have not received any full-fledged initiation before of any set of Tantra, then you should imagine the Avalokiteshvara and the two goddesses on your crown. So with this Sri Bezakrita mantra, so the dharma offering to drive away evil beings or evil forces is not given in the text. There's no time to do that, but we'll just imagine having done it. Gadan Rinpoche, His Holiness is talking to him. Did I tell you that, the spirits might sometimes find it quite confusing, because in the morning this monk actually does practices where he says all sentient beings are his friends and so forth, meditating on bodhichitta. But in the evening he does all these rituals to get rid of us. So those who are the sworn enemies of the Dharma and sentient beings, of course there are such beings, but they are still objects of our compassion, not someone to be crushed. So of course other lamas may do as the tradition mentions, to give this kind of dharma offering to drive away evil forces, sending them away. So for me, there is no such thing as enemies to be gotten rid of, and no action of getting rid of, and the one who gets rid of such. Because when you actually see things in the nature of emptiness, nothing can be held as like an existing solidly, being this and that. So first of all here, check where you are. What is the I? You may say, I'm Thai or I'm Tibetan, but where is that I? This body is not you, not I. My mind in this brain is not me, but my mind. And then my speech, the voice, is not me, but my voice. So where is your I? You may say, my mind, my body, my possession, my friend, but where is that I? Or me? So there was one lady who came to my audience and told me that that she actually feels all disturbed, fully disturbed in her mind. And then I asked her, where is that I? And she pointed to her heart. And I asked, what shape is it? Is it spherical, round, or square, or what? She said it's round. So of course, the I or me exists when you don't do any kind of critical analysis in checking where I am and so forth. Doing this, doing that. I'm doing this, I'm doing that, and so forth. Also it's there. But when you actually put this I under the lens of your critical analysis, where is it? There's nothing that you can pinpoint as being. And Sutra says there is this notion of an I, which is a devilish mind. And due to this, we have all kinds of distorted views. And so what this shows is that the I, that we so tightly cling on to as if it has some solid existence, is not there. But still, it's said that just as a chariot is designated on the assemblage of the parts together, likewise, a person is designated based on our psychophysical aggregates. And so in each part of the chariot or its collection and so forth, you cannot find the chariot that you can pinpoint, point your fingers at, but it is designated on the basis of its collections of its parts. Likewise, a person is, or I, this I is a designated entity on the basis of our body and mind. And because we cling on to the I, then we, as if it has some solid existence, it is said that it is like a devilish mind, and because of which all kinds of distorted views arise, saying we say I am this, my friend, my enemy, and so forth. And so now emptiness, meditate on where that I is and meditate on emptiness. Just as you think of yourself, the Buddha, whom we take refuge in, does not exist, as it is mentioned in the Madhyamaka Karika by Nagarjuna. The Tathagata is neither one with neither the aggregates nor separate from it. Neither the aggregates are in him, nor him in the aggregates, nor does Tathagata possess the aggregates. Where is Tathagata? And so likewise you should use this verse to refer to yourself. So though things and I or whatever do not have any independence or independent objective existence, yet they do appear to have. When you look at me, you may say, oh, the Dalai Lama is there on the throne, but when how the Dalai Lama appears to you is as if there is a solidly existent person. But when you actually critically search for the identity of Dalai Lama, then you will not find anything that you can pinpoint to as being the Dalai Lama. Or similarly, you can think about yourself now. In Buddhapalita commentary of Mula Madhyamaka Karika, all the commentary comes down to this point that nothing whatever can be founded when you search for the identity of things in the designated object. And therefore nothing can be found within the aggregates and so on. So you should bring up this conviction that though things appear to me as if they have some independent, solid existence out there, yet that's not the way they are. There's nothing whatever which exists solidly and independently. And this insight, mind meditating on the emptiness, from within that state of emptiness, your mind transforms into the deity, Kasarpani, with one face and two hands, together with the two goddesses. So if you have received initiation, full-fledged initiation, you should do that. Otherwise, visualize the deities on your crown. So in Buddhahood, in the state of Buddhahood, we talk about the Buddha's body, speech, and mind. So for us also, we should think that of reaching such a state or goal of these three Buddha bodies, the Nirmanakaya, Sambhogakaya, and Dharmakaya, and so forth. And so in order to attain the body of a body, speech, and mind of a Buddha at the stage of Buddhahood, you should make your prayer to reach that goal. I mean, you make a fervent request to the Lama. So from the heart of the Guru, Lama or Guru, rays of light are emitted. And from the 10 directions, the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, the blessings of the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas come in the form of the body of Avalokiteshvara, and imagine them coming down to you like a shower of rain and dissolving in you through the pores of the body. Or you can imagine all these Avalokiteshvara coming down and dissolving into you through your crown. And with this, you receive the blessing of the body of Avalokiteshvara, Nyanson Kuntul, or so this is stabilizing the blessing. And now next is requesting for the blessing of the speech of Avalokiteshvara. We create lots of negativities through our verbal actions to which harm others and so forth. And so now feel determined that you will not create such negative karmas that harm others. That you will not do so ever. So as you invoke the Guru, from the Guru's heart, rays of light are emitted. And the blessings of the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas and directions come down in the form of red R and nectars and so forth, mantras of Avalokiteshvara, and dissolve into your throat, thereby purifying all the negativities of your speech. Praised by all Buddhas, having all the qualities, he is known as Avalokiteshvara. I prostrate to you. And so Avalokiteshvara is the embodiment of all the compassion of all the Buddhas. Similarly, in the case of Manjushri, the Manjushri is the embodiment of wisdom of all the Buddhas. And so these two always go together. And so the quality of compassion, wisdom, and power come down in the form of the symbols and the home syllable. So Avalokiteshvara's blessings of body and speech, compassion and wisdom come down to you and dissolve in you. So having done the blessing of body, speech and mind, one by one, so these are to purify individually the negativities of your body, speech and mind. And then next, you purify the negativities or defilement through which you have this dualistic appearance. And so by purifying that, you attain the union state of Buddhahood, where there is the body, speech, and mind become of one essence, or so you are now next requesting the blessing of the body, speech, and mind, the shared blessing of the body, speech, and mind. So the body, speech, mind, and the enlightened deeds of all the Buddhas come in the form of Avalokiteshvara, big and small, and then Om Ahum, Swaha, and also the Sanskrit vowels and consonants. They dissolve into you through your crown, and they dissolve into the Om, Ah, and Hum, 3 syllables at your crown, throat, and Ah. And this leaves a very special, potent imprint or potential to attain the enlightened deeds of the Buddhas, of Avalokiteshvara. So the Avalokiteshvara generated in front, from him a replica comes down and enters you through your crown and sits on your inside you at your heart, so that you the Avalokiteshvara becomes inseparable from you forever. So Avalokiteshvara with the 2 deities. So a replica of this Avalokiteshvara is invoked through the prayers to the lineage masters. So please be the protector of this disciple. So this is a prayer to the 3 deities, Avalokiteshvara in the center, Ekazati on the left, and Grintara on the right, I think. So visualize the 3 deities in front. From their heart comes the mantras. The first time the mantras are placed at your heart, and then the second time the mantras coming from the deities become inseparable from yours, and the third time stabilizing. Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum. Next is the Tara mantra, Om Arya Tare Tam Soha, Om Arya Tare Tam Soha, Om Arya Tare Tam Soha. And next is the slightly frowning Tara, Om Ega Zati Hum Soha, Om Ega Zati Hum Soha. Please repeat, Om Ega Zati Hum Soha. So this completes the transmission of the mantra. So you have to commit to recite the 6-syllable mantra Om Mani Padme Hum. 1 round of mala at least on a daily basis. So there's different explanation of the 6-syllable mantras, but here, in short, Om is a syllable which is considered sacred in Buddhist and non-Buddhist traditions. Now, within the Buddhist tradition, we say this Om syllable comprises of 3 letters, A, U, and Ma, which refers to the body, speech, and mind. And so, Om Swabhava Shuddha means our body, speech, and mind are intrinsically free from any objective existence. So as long as the defilements on your mind are not purified, you are a sentient being. And once the defilements on your minds have been purified, you are a Buddha. And so these three, impure, body, speech, and mind, what is the means by which it is purified is mani and padma. Mani refers to the jewel and padma, lotus. And so mani refers to bodhichitta and padma, that of the view of emptiness. And so by uniting these two principles of bodhichitta and emptiness, you will be able to purify your body, speech, and mind represented by A, U, and Ma. And what happens is your body, speech, and mind becomes the body, speech, and mind of Buddha. In the end, when you become a Buddha, the pure body, speech, and mind. So with this, Avalokiteshvara liberating our beings from the lower realms is done. So whatever sin or unwholesome actions you may have created for bringing yourself into the lower realms of existence, it is said that receiving this blessing once will stop one rebirth into the lower realms. So we're done with the Nyanson Kundal Jenang. Now let's go to the text. Buddhapalita. His Holiness seems to have lost the bookmark, or so keep in mind where we stopped yesterday. His Holiness said, since I cannot find where I marked on my page, in any case, I will not be able to finish the text. So everyone, including the elderly people, keep in mind and stay alert. Next time when you come, you still have to receive this teaching on Buddhapalita commentary. So I will also keep my determination to continue with this teaching, even if I were to do it in my when I was in my 90s. So we have done as the concluding auspicious practice the Bodhisattva vows and the Avalokiteshvara Jenang. And tomorrow, the Southeast Asian people will have a question and answer session with His Holiness in the morning. And then after that, we'll have the photo session. So I've asked to do distribute this 8 verses for mind training. So since you have come here to listen to the teaching of Buddhapalita and we couldn't go so far down in the text, you may feel slightly disappointed, but to make up for that, I will do the 8 verses of mind training tomorrow. Yeah. I heard that tomorrow will